Am I reversed again? Hi, everybody out there. This is Dylan Knows, and welcome to there we go, special Saturday episode of Dylan Knows with my usual awesome co-host, Geri. Hello, everybody out there, Geri.
Hello, how you doing?
Happy Valentine's.
Nice. Happy Valentine's Day to you, too.
I see what's going on. Oh, there we go. Now it's like I had you on solid, so it would have been nice to look at you the whole show, but I kind of want to see myself when I'm talking a little bit.
You want to see that beautiful bra on your head.
Exactly, that's right. And people must be wondering, what's Dylan doing now? Well, it's not exactly how I wanted to do it, but for those who might not know, we are doing our top 10 list of John Hughes films, not necessarily the ones he directed, because he only directed like 8 of them. But ones that he's written also. We're going to talk about those as well because John Hughes was a huge influence on a lot of people. And in the movie Weird Science, which I'm sure one of us or both of us will be talking about, I know at least I'll be talking about it in some form or another, the two main characters wore bras on their heads to create their woman. So this is why you need to come see my show, because if you're not watching, you can't see me with my bra on my head. So I should tweet something that says, "Oh my God, Dylan has a bra on his head. Watch Dylan Knows right now." I'm gonna do that. So tell you what, while I'm waiting, while we're doing this, just real quick, Geri, what we usually do is our top 10 list. We do our top 10. This is John Hughes films, not necessarily ones he directed, but ones he directed and wrote, or ones he just wrote. We're gonna talk about those, and that's about it. We usually do this the second Sunday of the month, and so this is our usual list show. So while I'm getting this tweet prepped, Geri, if you want to go ahead and give me your number 10.
Okay, so my number 10 isn't a John Hughes original per se, and that's because it is his remake or his version of Dennis the Menace. And it was a very cute movie. For those of you who don't know, Dennis the Menace he started out as a comic book character, I believe, back in like the 40s, 50s, I want to say. I might be off on, which decade it was. But he's this mischievous little boy and known to get into a lot of trouble. And his next door neighbor is this older man named Mr. Wilson, George Wilson. And he always would get himself into trouble with Mr. Wilson. And it was sort of like this love-hate thing, because for as crazy as he drove Mr. Wilson, he still cared about Dennis very much. So I guess John Hughes, when Hollywood decided, hey, let's remake it, they asked him to come on in and to write the movie. And he did just such a beautiful job with it, because it was this nice mix of the old, like, throwback from the comic and the new, like, he sort of put some modern spins and whatnot into the story. So in the version in the movie, obviously when the comic came out in the 50s, there were stay-at-home moms and dad would go to work. But in the movie, what he did was his mom got a job. So now she needed someone to watch Dennis. And it's funny because they show this montage scene where her and her husband are calling everybody on the babysitter list. And some of them are like, just hang up on them as soon as they hear like their name or they hear Dennis. And finally they get down to W and it says George Wilson, their next door neighbor. So they talk to his wife, Martha, and she's like, oh, I'd be more than happy to watch him. And then, all kinds of shenanigans happen. I won't like ruin the movie for you, but it's just the fact that John Hughes did this really great, like I said, interpretation of marrying the old with the new, but still kind of giving you all the same gags and gimmicks that Dennis the Menace is known for. So he is my number 10.
That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, John. That's one of the main things about John Hughes is he has immense heart when it comes to his characters, and knows how to write both heartwarming stuff and hilarious stuff as well. Mm-hmm. As you'll see in these list of movies we're going to see. He's a very good balancing act about that. He's also was very contemporary for his time, considering when he was writing the ones from the 80s, the big ones in the 80s, how contemporary he was for that time, how he got the voices of all the kids almost to a T. And that's why it succeeded so well. It's because he knew how these kids actually talked and didn't write down to them. He wrote it as if they were regular kids, and he kept doing that even for his pay for hire stuff. My number 10 is also one that he didn't direct, but one that he wrote. And you could call it a lazy rewrite of Home Alone, kind of, but it's still very entertaining in its own right. It's the movie Career Opportunities. Stars Frank Whaley and Jennifer Connelly. And the basic premise is Frank Whaley is the world's biggest liar. He is named Jim Dodge, I think. And he lives at home with his parents. He's got an older sister, I think. And his parents are trying to get him out of the house. He's got to be in his mid-20s. So they're trying to get him out of the house, and he doesn't have a job. He's just sort of, well, he does have a job. Let me rephrase. He has lots of jobs. He does a job, and he usually gets fired very soon afterwards for one reason or another. But he's also considered the world's biggest liar because he makes up stories about himself. He's a spy, or, you know, he had dinner with the owner of a, you know, Fortune 500 company. And these younger kids are in awe of him. But everybody else looks at him and says, that's just sad because we know it's not true. So his dad eventually gets him a job as night cleanup boy at Target. And so he goes into Target, and so it's exactly what it says. It's not a 24-hour Target, so they close after like 11 o'clock at night, and it's his job to clean up the store and make it ready for the next morning when everyone else comes in. Now, it's kind of a little unrealistic because I know people who've worked at Target, and they have, even when the store's closed, they have stock people there all the time, getting new stock in, putting it on the shelf like that. In this movie, he's all by himself because the guy who was supposed to be his manager decided that he didn't want to be there with this kid because he wanted to be with his girlfriend. So he locks the door and locks him in till 7 a.m. and says, you got to do this job. And if you don't, you're going to be very sorry, you know? So of course, he's a young kid in his mid-20s, doesn't have any ambition, a big liar. So what does he do? He goes absolutely insane in the store. He eats stuff off of the shelves. He puts on costumes. He puts on dresses. He puts on bras, not on his head, but he puts bras on. He runs around naked, you know, and he gets rollerblades on and rollerblades through the store and does some cleaning to the side. He figures he'll play a little bit, clean a little bit, play a little bit, clean a little bit, so on and so forth. So while he's doing one of his cleaning binges, when he's roller skating, he's rollerblading, he discovers Jennifer Connelly's in there. And he knows Jennifer Connelly because they're in a small, tight-knit community, and she is the daughter of like the richest guy in town. And he has a crush on her, obviously. So he's like, oh, what are you doing here, you know? And she tells him the story that, you know, she's feeling suffocated by her dad, and she wants to move out on her own, but she doesn't have the guts to do it. She needs somebody to be with her. So she's going to try to convince him to go with her so they can leave town. And the reason why, or embarrass her father, because that's the reason why she was in Target after dark, was she was going to shoplift and get caught. And then her father would be embarrassed because his daughter got caught shoplifting, and it would be a big scandal in this small town. But unfortunately, she fell asleep in the dressing room, and so she woke up eventually. So then the two of them decide that, okay, we're gonna move out. We're gonna get out of here together. She's got some money socked away. They're gonna go maybe to California like that. So that's cool. And so they decide, you know, this will be fun. So they have a little bit of fun in the store as well. But there's also two thieves who've been going around murdering people in convenience stores, and they just happened to hit the Target. Now, to me, how the heck did they get into the Target? Because it's locked. That's the one thing I don't know how they got in. But basically, while they're running around there, they run into them, and they've got guns, and they're the guys who have killed people. So now they have to use their brains. Jim's got to use his lying ability, and she's got to use her sex appeal to try to escape from the situation. And the end becomes sort of a Home Alone free-for-all. Not necessarily where he creates death traps, but he uses stuff to attack them and stuff like that. So, but regardless of the fact that it's kind of a lame movie when you think about the storyline, it's a lot of fun. Frank Whaley is having a blast. He's for those who might not know who Frank Whaley is, a couple things. He's the one guy who gets shot by Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction when they're talking about the burgers, and he's like, "Say what again?" You know. And that's Frank Whaley. He was also in The Freshman with Matthew Broderick. He was Matthew Broderick's roommate, the one who had the leathers, and was with him when the Komodo dragon got loose in the mall. So Frank Whaley's been in a bunch. He was also in a Broken Arrow, which is John Travolta, Christian Slater movie, and he's been in a lot of other movies. You'd recognize him if you saw him. So he's consummate character actor, but in this case, he's the lead, and he's having a blast. You can see he's absolutely having a great blast. His character, you can tell why younger kids like him, because he is a liar, but he's very charismatic about his lying. And then I have to just say, Geri, I know, but my God, Jennifer Connelly is hot in this movie. She is at the epitome of her hotness in this movie, and she spends most of the movie in a white tank top, very tight. So that's for all you guys out there. You gotta go see it. That, and also the sequence where she's on one of those horses at the mall, you know, the place where it's true. It's a great sequence. It's awesome.
Yes.
But
that's a very Michael Bay thing. Tank top and bouncing around.
Exactly. Yeah. But in this case, it works. But in the end, Career Opportunities, it's a cute little film, and I'm going to be talking about this actor again in a second. But John Candy has an awesome cameo. He has a fantastic cameo in this movie, and it is one of the funniest scenes in the film. And I'll just tell you what it is real quick. It's when Jim's going in for his interview for this job, and John Candy's like the manager, one of the big managers of the Target, not the night manager, but the regular manager. And he thinks that Frank Whaley's character is this new hotshot young assistant manager that they've been hearing about, who wants to come and interview. So he's got a nice resume, stuff like that. So John Candy believes that Frank Whaley is this guy. So he starts asking these questions, and Frank Whaley doesn't know what he's talking about, but he wants to take advantage of it. So he uses his lying ability to keep up the facade that he is this guy. And it is one of the funniest sequences in the whole movie, just because John Candy is phenomenal and anything he does with John Hughes. And even it's a small 5-minute scene, it is great. But in the end, Frank Whaley steals the movie with his comedic timing and his charisma. It's so funny. So Career Opportunities is my number 10.
Great. Good one. All right, my number 9 stars an actress who's done a number of John Hughes movies. In this case, or in this movie, she plays Andy, our favorite. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I just heard like a click and I thought it went out. Sorry about that. Anyway, the movie is Pretty in Pink. So we have Andy, who is sort of like this outcast in Chicago high school, and she is in love with the popular boy named, what's his name? Blaine, sorry about that, played by Andrew McCartney. I had a brain freeze there because of that click. And she's like this oddball. She works at the record store. Her best friend is the owner of the record store, or the girl who runs it, and that's played by Annie Potts. So she only has this older, friend. And then her only friend in school is played by John Cryer, a very popular character, Decky. So it's this whole poor girl loves the rich guy. She does get his attention, and they sort of start dating. But then it's you realize when somebody's not in your same social sphere, and the struggle of just trying to be accepted in their circle, and having them understand your circle, or maybe you feel embarrassed by your circle, you feel like you're less. So all that coming around. Plus, you're in high school and you're awkward already as it is. But what's cute too is Ducky is in love with her from afar. So that's Pretty in Pink. That's pretty much the
he's
but he's good about getting all those nuances of people's feelings, and especially teenagers in that age group.
He's so far in the friend zone. It's
it's
crazy.
Yeah.
And also the fact James Spader is a dick.
Yeah, of course. He's so good at doing that.
Yeah, he's very good at it. And Harry Dean Stanton as her mom is really good also. But Pretty in Pink is one of those that would be my number 11. It's not one of my favorite John Hughes films. And I guess I don't know, because maybe I'm with the majority of people spoiler warning here, who believes that at the end of the movie, she should have gone with Ducky because he was the one who was with her the whole time. And if you've been looking at any of John Hughes' films up to that point, the nerdy, guy who's there whenever you need him, or in some cases, the girl who needs is the one who gets the one that they want. So the one that they belong together with. So you thought, okay, it's going to be leading to this. Ducky's so great for her. He's so funny. He takes good care of her and loves her so much. And she's sort of confused, but she's really in love with Blaine. And then all this other shit happens, bad stuff. And it looks like that she's going to start, going back to Ducky. But then in this case, and I think Hughes was under pressure by Molly Ringwald because she wanted to end up with Andrew McCartney because I think they were dating at the time. And she thought that would be Andy's better happy ending, would be with the guy of her dreams. I guess maybe harkening back to the 16 Candles, which we'll talk about later in the show, stuff. But, to me, I think that Ducky is much better because Andrew McCartney, even though he ends up appearing to finally look like he's a good guy, he still was kind of a dick to her, and I understand why it's a class struggle and stuff like that. But I think I would have preferred if she would have ended up with Ducky, who I think a lot of people in the world did. But all in all, I mean, it's
that would have been too obvious, though. You know what I mean? Like you said, like that's John Hughes' MO. So by going the opposite way, it makes the audience go, "Oh wow!" But I do have to say there was something great about when she finally appears in the pink dress. Because she did everything she had to do to get to that point, and it's just like a nice full circle for her.
It is, and also the great song by OMD, "If You Leave," which is another great thing about John Hughes is his taste in music, especially when he's directing. He gets such great classic songs, and we'll talk about some of the other ones down the line because he's got a ton of them. And I tried to use some of them in my tweets to announce the show this week. I tried to use some of them in there just to see people get the ideas what we're talking about. So.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it came across.
My number 9 is once again features John Candy. In this case, in more of a lead role. It's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Steve Martin and John Candy. This one was written and directed by Hughes in this case, and it's up this high because while it's not my absolute favorite John Hughes film, it has a lot of heart, and it stems more from John Candy again, where Steve Martin is playing Steve Martin. He's playing the uptight business guy who works in New York City, and he wants to go. His family lives in Chicago or the Chicago suburbs, which is where most of his stuff, where Hughes' stuff takes place, and so he wants to get back to see his family for Thanksgiving because he probably is gone for a few weeks at a time and misses his family, obviously, and of course it's the holidays. So he's trying to get to the airport quickly so he can fly out there and have Thanksgiving with his family because he loves his family, misses his family. And it starts off right away with a great cameo by Kevin Bacon in the sequence where Steve Martin and Kevin Bacon are racing for the same cab to try to get to the airport. So unfortunately, Kevin Bacon wins and Steve Martin ends up having to get the next one, but he's running late as it is, but he eventually is able to get onto the airplane, and his seatmate is John Candy, who is your typical loud. He's not really obnoxious, but he's very loud, very friendly, wants to talk to you. He's almost like, I don't know if you ever had the situation, Geri, but when I get my hair cut, I go to an old school barber shop, and I don't go to a haircut or anything like that.
Me too.
My point is, and I'm getting to my point, is the haircut stylist or whatever you want to call them, they start talking to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just want to sit there and just get my hair done. All right. I don't want to answer dumb questions, or not dumb questions, but answer questions and talk to them. Yeah, the small talk. Yeah. So that's what John Candy's character is really good for too. But of course, there's a snowstorm coming or whatever, and the plane gets delayed. So now he's got to figure out another way to get out there. And so John Candy says, "Hey, let me tag along with you. I'm heading out that way too." And so Steve Martin is in his exasperated way is like, "Fine, all right, whatever. I just want to get going." So during I guess the period of about a day or two leading to Thanksgiving. It's not necessarily on Thanksgiving because I think he gets back in time for Thanksgiving, but it's a few days before. Him and John Candy have your typical traveling nightmare where everything goes wrong, and they take the aforementioned planes, trains, and automobiles, and nothing seems to get them. They end up all over the freaking place. And Steve Martin, and what he does best is Steve Martin starts getting more and more agitated and exasperated. And John Candy is trying to calm him down, but he's at that point that Steve Martin doesn't want to be. And so they start having this, this.
Yes.
you can see it, and you could even say in some cases, a lot of people have said before that John Candy's character is overly annoying. Well, no, he's not really. He's just a friendly guy who, we learn later on is actually very lonely.
Yeah.
Because his wife has died and he has no other family. So he's sad and upset about that. And eventually, Steve Martin discovers this and invites him, once they make it to the house in time, invites him into the house for Thanksgiving. So has a happy ending, but it's one of those great comedies where you get two really good comedians, a Steve Martin and a John Candy, playing off each other, and they're pretty much doing their same thing. Steve Martin is the straight guy, John Candy is the comedic guy, but they share the wealth a little bit. There are some sequences where John Candy becomes the straight man, and Steve Martin is the comedian. When he starts getting real exasperated as things keep getting worse and worse, he starts turning more and more into like the Tasmanian devil and starts, doing his little hand motions as, his little Steve Martinisms that he does. And John Candy's there to try to send him down. And so, but it's a very, it's a funny comedy, but at the same time, as in all of Hughes's films, again, has a lot of heart in it, and you have to sometimes dig to get to the heart, and usually it happens near the end. And in this case, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is my number 9, and it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, that's a great one. All right, my number 8 we've discussed on other lists. I think we did it for Father's Day maybe, and that is Mr. Mom. So Mr. Mom takes place in the 80s, and Michael Keaton plays Jack. He's an automobile engineer, and there's a recession, so he gets fired from his job. So then his wife, Carolyn, played by Terry Garr, decides she's going to get a job, hence Jack becoming Mr. Mom. And it's a very cute movie. Lots of challenges, trials, tribulations that they both have to face. Her with dealing with going into the workforce, him dealing with just, the whole stay-at-home culture that's out there, and learning how to take care of his children. It wasn't really the norm yet in the 80s. I think, mid to late 80s, Dylan, would you say, is when more moms started getting out there and going to work?
It was just starting. It was just starting at that time, because in 82, I think it was 82, was 9 to 5, which was like the first movie that really got women in the working world, and then things started spiraling from there. So it was much later when it became more the norm, and this was kind of unusual.
Right. So it wasn't the norm. So it was just this really cool, new, like a unique concept. And like you said, with the heart and just the way that they tackle their problems, and, things take a turn for the worse, then they get resolved at the end. It's done in just a beautiful way. And it's a really nice family movie and has a lot of funny moments too. So that is my number 8.
This is why I always love doing these list shows with you, Geri, because my number 8 is Mr. Mom.
Well, then you can continue from there.
We hit it pretty good. Yeah, it was Father's Day, because I think we had it. We both had it, I think, on our Father's Day list also, I think so. Last year. So, but yeah, it's really, from what I read while I was doing more research on John Hughes, this was really like his first major work for hire, because Vacation came very soon after it. So Mr. Mom came before Vacation did. So this was like his first real foray. He had done some other stuff earlier so that he got his name out there, but this is the first one where he actually got his name up on the credits. It was his script up there, and was the beginning basically of his, superb script writing career, because I think he had failed. He tried to do a Animal House type of movie in like 82, and it just failed miserably because he just couldn't grasp, Animal House is iconic, and he
Yeah.
couldn't grasp how it did that. So it became a failure, and that didn't stop him, though. I mean, maybe it gave him a second to pause. Okay, this is what I need to focus on, and he starts writing this up, and you get Mr. Mom, which is, again, a very unique circumstance for the time. Yeah, it is. Once again, it's a picture in time. It's not a timeless film because of a lot of the stuff that they talk about, and the fact that everyone is so exasperated that there's a woman in the workplace, which is now the norm. In fact, I think there's probably more women in the workplace now than men. Maybe, I don't know. It's just they just seem to be or they're making more money. No, my wife is making more money than me, so. But it was great though, just seeing Michael Keaton is such a great actor, and once again he was very young. Also, he had just done, I think, Night Shift was one of the only films that he had done at that time, so he was still up and coming also. So the fact that he had John Hughes, who was up and coming, and Michael Keaton, who was up and coming. Terry Gard had been around for a while, so she was sort of like the veteran presence. Same with Martin Mull, who plays kind of like the bad guy, even though there's not really a bad guy in the film. He's like the bad guy in it. But he was around also. So you had those veterans around you. So you had Michael Keaton, who is at that time was very funny, very charismatic as well. And just seeing him having to try to figure out how to take care of 3 kids, 2 kids and a young baby, was just hilarious. And it was typically, yes, as cliched as it is, that dads don't know what they're doing. In 1983, it actually was okay because dads really didn't know what they were doing at that time.
Wasn't that scene with the blow dryer? He blow dries the baby's butt.
Yeah,
it's in that movie.
Yeah, he's actually going to like some sort of job interview or whatever. He has to take the kids with him, and they're wrecking the bathroom. Yeah, and she's holding it up. He's on the blow right there. And then the day from hell where the baby gets into the chili and starts eating the chili, and then has just the insane amount of like diarrhea and poop. So you have your poop humor and just your stuff like that. But it's a very funny, very good family film, and it's a lot of fun. It also has a lot of heart, and the roles became reversed, where Michael Keaton, when he was working, was the auto guy, and auto guy was working hard, and his wife was taking care of the family. And then things flipped, and she started working harder and doing the long hours and traveling more and not being there. And so he had to flip the script and try to talk her into coming down a little bit too, because she had talked him into coming down a little bit also. Right. So it was it's a good dichotomy, and a really good, to be honest, I think one of the better film versions of an actual married couple. The fight, they have fights. They love each other immensely, and just the pressures and the hard work they have trying to balance family and work. It was done so perfectly in this, and it's amazing that it was a 1983 film, and that aspect of it is what makes it timeless. The rest of the stuff isn't, because of the TVs and the commercials and the comments and the clothing and the hair and everything like that. So yep, number 8 for me also, Mr. Mom. So
awesome.
Let's see how many we can match up. Yes, we can match up a lot, actually, because there's not really too much we can do with John Hughes.
So my number 7 stars an actor who you mentioned in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but not the main actors. It is Kevin Bacon, and he's in it along with Elizabeth McGovern, and it is She's Having a Baby. So Jack and Christy are high school sweethearts who then get married. And, they're newlyweds, and Jack realizes, being married isn't what I thought it was going to be. So, he sort of like goes to his job, and he's fantasizing about this dream girl. And I mean, he's happy, with his wife and everything, but he still kind of thinks of, what else is out there and what other people are doing. And Alec Baldwin plays like his single friend, like the womanizer. So he's sort of like not living vicariously through him, but like, getting the stories and looking at him kind of like, he's living the life. Well, Christy decides she's ready to start a family. So she secretly stops taking her birth control. And after a while, it says here she comes clean because she can't get pregnant. So then they have to have like a really real conversation about it and end up going to a fertility clinic. And then it's the whole rest of the movie is about her and the pregnancy and just, having to really grow up. It's one thing to get married, but then it's a whole nother thing to actually grow up, be married, and be ready to make this, huge commitment and bring children into the world. And it's just a really good story. And it's funny because, when I saw it, I wasn't anywhere near the age where I'd want to be married or have children. I was probably in my teens. I didn't write down what year it came out. But I still was just as enthralled with the story as, maybe older couples who were in that stage and could relate better. But I mean, he was so good at telling the story and portraying this couple and the problems in their marriage and whatnot, that even me as a teenager could still appreciate it and, get into, the whole story and what it was all about. Yeah.
No, that's a great insight on that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the film myself. Maybe it's one of those things where I didn't see it at the right time again. Maybe it's one of those I need to revisit again. But therein lies what we were just talking about, is that with Mr. Mom, you have this realistic portrayal of a couple that's been married for a while. They've got 3 kids. They're fairly successful, nice house, stuff like that. And then you've got a look at a young couple that has just started on their path to marriage, and how in some cases it's not, as you said, it's not exactly what you might be expecting out of marriage. Now, with me, it was a little bit easier for me because I got married in my 30s. So, it's kind of, you get through your 20s, but when you get married in your 20s, it's a little, not for everybody,
Right.
but it's you think this is what needs to be done. This is the next thing to become an adult. You need to go to the next level there. And then you realize, oh, wait, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. And once again, that just shows how great John Hughes was as a writer, is that he can take this fantastic portrayal of a perfectly married couple, who have their issues and problems, and then able to say, you know what, let's take a look at a different aspect of marriage at a young couple. And I'm sure he's probably done, I don't remember, but maybe a view of like an older couple, when their kids are older. So, or maybe he never got the chance to actually go and do that because either maybe it didn't interest him, or he just didn't know how to approach it, or was too close, because he was an older guy when he made these films. So he was probably in his 20s or 30s when he made these movies in the 80s. And I think She's Having a Baby was like the late 80s, I think. So it was still kind of in that time frame. So yeah, we'd be, in our teens, still in high school type of thing. So my number 7 is the first of 2 combined, as I talked to you about earlier. John Hughes, Mr. Mom might have been his first film that he ever wrote that was successful, but he had a pretty good secondary one in 1983 also, and that was Vacation. And I've combined, because he wrote Vacation, European Vacation, of course, the classic Christmas Vacation. He wrote all 3 of those, and all 3 of those are just as brilliant as anything he's written before. He didn't direct any of those films, and I would have loved to see a John Hughes directed Vacation movie. I think that would have been fantastic to see him do that. But I think during the time frame, he was working more on the 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Weird Science trifecta he was working on during that period, because that was around the time, granted the Vacation movies were spaced out enough that, he got some time in between, but still the fact is those 3 movies are great. And we had this discussion a while back about Chevy Chase. And no matter what you may think about him as a regular person, when he portrays Clark Griswold, you're cheering for him. He's funny. Everything he does, he's trying to make his family have a great experience. But again, much like with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, nothing ever goes as it's supposed to for Chevy Chase. And the fact that he's able to, he loses it. Yes, he does. And to be honest, all the stuff that he goes through, I would probably be reacting pretty much the same way he would, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything really that I wouldn't have done. Maybe not. I might have deleted it.
He may overreact a little
bit. Yeah, he might a little bit. Yeah. A little bit. But I mean, Christmas Vacation especially, the overreaction is understandable because he's going to be in trouble financially if if this bonus doesn't come through. And so that's really the stress of it. And just so he also he loves his family, his extended family. Not he loves his wife and kids,
Right.
but his extended family, he could be like, yeah, I love you, but I don't want to spend that much time with you, and I want you to have a good time. Yeah, mostly especially because of Cousin Eddie. But at the same time, though, you get the worst aspects of in-laws and parents in this. So, I've lucked out. I think you've lucked out also, Geri, that you've not really had too many really bad extended family stuff. So we don't really know how we would react. I think you agree. I think you're right. I think we wouldn't overreact quite so much as he would. But the fact is, his whole reason for being is he wants his family to be happy. He's thinking the best way for them to be happy is let's take a road trip vacation to Wally World. We want a vacation to Europe during a stupid game show, and we're gonna maximize this because we're not paying for it. We're gonna maximize everything we can and see as much as we can because we're not paying for this, and there's no way we're going back to Europe on our own dime anytime soon. So let's go see everything we can. We're seeing 3 or 4 countries, so let's do that. And then Chris's vacation, which was I love the idea that he got away from the big massive journeys and made it a homebound storyline.
Yeah.
It's still called it Vacation, Chris Vacation. It still works in the process of the film, the storyline. So, and it's just great seeing him and Beverly D'Angelo have such great chemistry together, and they are once again another very believable married couple. Though slightly, he's a little bit more overactive, but she is very loving of him and can take a lot. But in each one of the films, she has a little breakdown of her own. Not so much really in Chris's Vacation. That's more of when she's chopping the carrots and and smoking stuff like that. Yeah. But she doesn't really have that freak out like she does in the other films.
Wow. You can't blame her for yours.
I can't blame her for that. I can't blame her for European Vacation. I can't blame her for Vacation, and the fact that, he's tempted in Vacation by Christy Brinkley, maybe there's some underlying thing. I think that was more along the lines of it was more of stress from the vacation. If they weren't on this vacation, because he loves his wife, but the fact is, here's a young, sexy, hot chick in a sexy car who's flirting with him, and he's a guy, admit it, and you're kind of, you want to feel, even though you're a dad and stuff like that, you want to still feel like you can be kind of sexy like that. And then European Vacation, yeah, and then there's again a healthy sex life between the married couple, but it just so happens that he videotaped the sex thing in the bathroom and forgot to delete it, and their camera gets stolen and then gets plastered all over Paris as a porn. Those are understandable. Yes, absolutely. So, Dawn just came down, shook her head at my bra. Eventually. Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day, honey.
Well, you're wearing the bra and you just said porn movies, so she's probably like, what are they discussing? You have some splaining to do.
I do, yeah. I do. Luckily, I got a lot of good stuff for her, so yeah. Here's presents. I love you, baby.
Exactly.
But in the end, though, I mean, it's great. I like I even though they're different actors, I like the different kids. I like seeing the younger kids with Anthony Michael Hall and Dana Barron, I guess, was in the first one. And then the second one, it was Robin Lively's brother. I forget his first name. And then another Dana something else. And then you have Johnny Galecki and Juliette Lewis, who are probably the most famous of all of them. Anthony Michael Hall notwithstanding, but let's face facts. Johnny Galecki is more famous now than Anthony Michael Hall is. So,
yeah. Well, he got Big Bang Theory, and
he had a little bit better. Roseanne, he had a little bit better trajectory, whereas he started off strong and then just went. Well, Dead Zone was pretty good. He went down and then came back up with Dead Zone, and then now he's doing more supporting roles. He was on Z Nation this season, so that's pretty good. And he still looks weird. He doesn't look normal.
Yeah, he's very
he doesn't look
looking.
like he's not the cute toe-headed little kid that we're used to. It's like, come on, where's Farmer Ted? But and it's good though, because Vacation was the family going across the United States, and they're seeing good old-fashioned the Midwest and seeing all this stuff. And then you have European Vacation, where the kids are older, and it's a bit more sexy, as it were, not just necessarily for the shower porn thing, but also for the French nightclub that Rusty goes into, and the strippers and stuff like that. And then the German girl who reveals her top to Rusty also, and stuff like that. And then Christmas Vacation sort of brings it back down from the more adult aspect and brings the kids down in age a little bit and makes it more of a homegrown family thing like the original one was. So it's and that's what makes it interesting, is he's able to juggle these three different storylines using the same characters, but it still seems like it's a linear thing, that it all happened to them in one aspect or another, even though each movie is so different. So my number 7 is the Vacation trilogy. We're not even going to talk about Vegas Vacation. We talked about that enough with the bad sequels. But your number 6.
All right, my number 6 is, well, I've got Long Dylan Dong right here, and it is 16 Candles, which I'm sure it's higher up on your list because you're Long Dylan Dong. So we have Samantha, and she's a teenager played by Molly Ringwald, and she's very angst-ridden, and she she's getting ready to turn 16, hence 16 Candles, but her big sister is getting married. So basically the whole premise of the movie is everyone is so focused on the sister and the wedding that they're sort of forgetting about her. And she's got, your typical adolescent issues, saying, like we said, he's great at speaking in that voice of a teenager. She likes the older guy, Jake. She doesn't know if he notices him, and if he does notice, or he notices her, and if he does notice her, she's sort of like, I don't know if I would call her like a good girl, but she's maybe not ready to kind of like put herself out there. So she's like, oh, maybe he's going to get turned off by that. So she's got all those issues and stress. Then, of course, the only guy that really is paying attention to her is Anthony Michael Hall's Ted. And, he's like this dork of a dork. And lots of things go on. Lots of things happen. We've discussed this movie a ton. But 16 Candles, I kind of fell right in the middle at number 6 for me.
We're going to discuss it a lot more later.
Yeah, I figured as much. I leave it to you. That's being the co-host and you being your show. You're wearing the bra.
I'm wearing the bra on my head, yes. Right. My show.
Great movie, and definitely needs to be in the top 10 for John Hughes. And 16.
Awesome. Good. Let's see if nobody's making comments about anything, so well. That's all right. My number 6 is the second. I don't know why. It's just how the things fell. The second of my combined films. This is another one. This is another one that John Hughes just wrote and didn't direct, but he had the capable director of Chris Columbus direct them. It's the Home Alone movies. Now I combined them both mainly because they're basically the same movie.
You mean 1 and 2?
Yeah, 1 and 2. They're basically the same movie. But I like both. I like Home Alone, obviously, much better than Home Alone 2. I have a lot of issues with Home Alone 2, but I like the fact that they mixed it up slightly by taking him out of his house and actually putting him in New York City, which is, you get a better idea of that. But the Home Alone movies, I think everybody knows about them. The Home Alone is actually, this is another interesting fact I learned about John Hughes, is his most highly successful, profitable movie he ever was involved with. Not 16 Candles, not Breakfast Club, not Weird Science, not Ferris Bueller. Home Alone, the original Home Alone, was the most successful movie he was ever involved with. And he wrote it, and he wrote the heck out of it. Home Alone is such a great Christmas movie, and we've talked about it in our Christmas movies as well. So I'm just going to touch on just how great it is. Yes, it's about a 8-year-old left at home by his parents when they go off on a holiday to Paris. And it it still doesn't make sense how they left him behind, but I understand you got to leave that behind.
Yeah, she counted.
You,
The sister counted the neighbor boy, and
she
did.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though: is Kevin that hard of a sleeper that he doesn't hear the family? He's only one floor up. He doesn't hear the families yelling and talking and throwing their luggage everywhere and going up and down, and Uncle Frank is screaming, blah, 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 Is he that heavy of a sleeper that he doesn't hear that? I don't know, because I'm not in his attic. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those attics that you can't hear a damn thing.
Real insulated.
and I can understand because they're in a rush. But that's the one thing that gets me, is that you would have thought that he could have heard that. And would have, and it would take, but that, of
or
course,
the mom would have had his passport, and so when you got to him at the airport, you're like, okay, kids, you line up, and here's my passport, kind of thing.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have been there. That's true.
But
we should have picked that
part. well, and then in the end, though, but how they got around that was they just said, oh, here's your stuff, and here's the other thing also, they have to go through customs.
Yeah.
It's not something like you can just walk through and say, okay, you're fine, you can go to Paris, go ahead. No, it takes time to go through customs. So, and I don't think they'd be able to make it. They have 45 minutes to get to the airport, get through customs, get to their airplane in order to get there. There is no way in hell you could do that if you're going to Paris. You're going to Florida, it's a different story. But you're not. You're going to Paris. You're going to Florida in the second movie. But regardless, if you just ignore that, it is a great Christmas film. Kevin is the typical bratty 8-year-old who's left home alone, has to fend for himself. And at the time, fending for himself, he learns a lesson about family and taking care of himself and standing up for himself. And then, of course, the most kids' probably worst fear is that you're home alone in a house and two strangers are trying to break into your house, which is what happens in this film. You've got Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci's characters who are, thieves who are working the neighborhood, and heard that most of the people in this neighborhood are going away on holiday. So, they're going to, knock all these houses in a row. Nobody's going to be home. They're all nice houses. There's going to be tons of stuff they can take, lots of money, jewelry, trinkets, stuff like that. And they're going to make a ton of money, and they're going to be able to retire comfortably. But of course, they run into the buzzsaw that is Kevin McAllister, and everybody knows the situation. He turns his house into a death trap, and then they come into the house and they get their butts handed to them by an 8-year-old. And that's a great story. That's fine. But the story you need to be focusing on, there's two other parts of the story you need to focus on, is the love of Kevin's mother, played by Catherine O'Hara, who is so guilty about leaving her son behind, which I guess you would be. I mean, you would consider you left your youngest son behind, and everyone else all home alone by themselves, and you're over in Paris and you didn't notice, and so gets into Mama Bear protective thing, and she says, I don't care, I'm going to make my way to get to him to tell him everything's okay. And so she fights and claws her way to get back to the States, and she has her own horrible experiences getting back there.
You know why I'm laughing? I'm just thinking of John Candy in the back of the van.
Yep. Once again, I think everyone would say that Molly Ringwald was John Hughes's muse. Now, that might be true in the early 80s, but John Candy was the one that became his lucky charm. He was in Career Opportunities, small cameo. He was in Plane, Trains, Automobiles. He's in Uncle Buck, which is another movie we'll talk about down the line. He's in Home Alone as the Polka King of the Midwest, which is Gus Polinski, a great name, a great character. And
his son at the funeral.
That is one of the funniest scenes of the whole film, is he's trying to be a nice guy and he's trying to cheer up Catherine O'Hara's character, and he just tells her stories about leaving their kid at a funeral parlor all day. And
he did talk for like months.
And just the lackadaisical way he says, yeah, he spent the whole day with the corpse. It is great, and John Candy is so great, and he's even in Vacation also. He popped up in Vacation.
Yeah,
He was the guy,
security guard.
yeah, the security guard at Wally World. So he's got that as well. So he's been in a bunch of these films. So it's and that's the one story. The other story is the relationship Kevin has with the neighbor, the older neighbor,
Yeah.
Robert Blossom, who is the guy that everyone tell stories about. They think that he is a serial killer called the Shovel Slayer, and because he's always quiet, keeps to himself, doesn't say anything. He never has any visitors, no family. And Kevin, being a kid, hears from his brother saying this guy is a serial killer. It freaks him out a little bit. But then he gets to know the guy, and one of my absolute, and I've talked about this too, Krista, my favorite scene in the whole movie is the scene between the two of them in the church when they're talking about regrets and stuff like that. And it is a phenomenal piece of cinematography, music, and just the written word is just a great acting job by Kevin, which is, Macaulay Culkin, which is a shame that his career turned out the way it did. Robert Blossoms was already a great character actor who'd been around since the 50s, so he'd been in a ton of stuff. But it's good to have a veteran there, but he was able to get and Chris Columbus was able to get a great performance out of Macaulay Culkin, actually, in this one. And then Hughes got a good one out of him in Uncle Buck, which we'll talk about a little bit too. So those are two stories that are great. And then you go to Home Alone 2. And that one, they just decide to go with, and it doesn't quite have the same heart because it's basically taking the same stuff. He's got the in this case, instead of the old neighbor next door, it's an old homeless lady in Central Park, played by Brenda Fricker, excuse me. And then you have the mom again, Catherine O'Hara, trying to get her way back to New York. But it's a lot easier for her this time. Her family's with her this time. They go from Florida to New York, and then they find out where he is in New York because they discover the credit cards and where he's been charging stuff and stuff like that. And so they go to New York, and then she goes out in New York City on Christmas Eve looking for him, which is dangerous. And in New York in the early 90s, for a woman to go around at night looking for her son. So
it's also dangerous for her son, but they sort of skim over that too.
Yeah, it is. It's dangerous for son also. But we figure, he was able to survive 2 burglars, and he's going to be able to survive this. But but what you get is a great performance from Tim Curry, who is always great in this. He plays the concierge at the hotel that Kevin stays at. And it just reminds me of Tim Curry's trying to talk Catherine O'Hara from going out to New York City. It's like, to be fair, madam, your son is lost in the biggest city
in the world.
And he's like, okay, have fun. Be careful.
And a very young Rob Schneider.
He's in there too. So is that asshat Donald Trump, and we're not going to talk about that.
Oh, isn't it?
He's real quick because it's Trump Tower he's staying at. So gotcha. Or a hotel. Actually not their hotel, but he's when Kevin goes into the lobby to find where the main lobby area is, he asks somebody to help him. It's Donald Trump and says, "Oh, it's over there." I'm just saying that has nothing to do with anything. I just had to get my little asshat comment in there.
That's a huge, that's a flaw. There are plenty other hotels they could have used.
But so it lacks the heart really, and it's much more vicious and violent. Home Alone 2 is, but there's still, what I like about it is what you give. In this case, you give Kevin a reason for doing what he does at the end. And that's when Harry and Marv, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, who are back, who've escaped jail and are in New York City now, are going to knock over a toy store, which actually, it sounds stupid, but actually it isn't. It's fairly smart because it's true. Christmas Eve, you'd think toy stores would have the most money on hand in their cash registers because last minute presents, people buying stuff like that. So actually that wasn't too bad. In this case, in this place, which is like a dressed up FAO Schwartz, basically.
Yeah.
They have like a tip jar that they're going to give to a homeless kids hospital or shelter like that. And Kevin finds out about that, and then he overhears them saying they're going to steal all that money. So now Kevin has a reason for doing what he does. Yeah. He has to protect the money so it goes to the young kids who need it. And there's a great scene in it where he's visiting the house, the hospital where the kids are, and he sees the kid in the window, and the kid waves at him, and he waves back, and it's very heartfelt and very nice, and it gives you a reason why he's doing what he's doing. Of course, he does it a little too brutally. In this case,
Yeah.
Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci should be dead.
They should have been dead in the first one too.
Not in the first one, yeah. Or at least have horribly mangled bodies, as it were. But in this case, it's just a whole lot worse. And I guess sequels, you got to get bigger and better. And I think we talked about this last month. We did the bad sequels. So, but at the end, it's still got the John Hughes touch. It's still a Chris movie. It's still very well directed by Chris Columbus. You still get a pretty good performance out of Macaulay Culkin, but then you throw a Tim Curry in there, and you get and a Brenda Fricker even though she's playing basically the same role as Robert Blossom did, she still is a very good actress, and you get to see her to do that
nice
as well. Yeah. So that's my number 6.
Well, my number 5 is, yes, Uncle Buck is my number 5. John Candy. Love Uncle Buck. So the story of Uncle Buck, which a lot of people know, just Cindy and Bob, their husband and wife, and they moved to a new town. And there's a family emergency. Cindy's mom, I think, gets sick. So she has to go care for her mom. And where's the husband? I think he's like on a business trip. So there's X amount of days where they have no one to care for their 3 children. They have a teenage daughter. They have Macaulay Culkin, who's probably like 9-10 years old. And there's a little sister. So they call around, they can't find anybody, and their very, very last resort is good old Uncle Buck, who is Bob's brother. But he's sort of like the slacker, middle-aged guy, kind of doesn't really get anything going in terms of his life and getting started. He's got the job and he's got the girlfriend, but he's just sort of like, he's not reliable. So they call him, and he promises up and down and left and right he will be there, and he will help out because he's family, and this is, that's what family is for in the time of need. So he goes. And of course, he's total bachelor, and he does some very funny things. He does some very wrong things. And when he clashes with Tia, who is the teenage daughter, he realized, she's really on her way toward a path of, just getting into trouble and making bad decisions. And it's her that sort of snaps him out of it, and he realizes, okay, I got to get my act together, and I've got to help her. And it's just very funny that it's the uncle-niece relationship that then sort of turns the whole story around. And Hughes, of course, lots of heart, lots of comedy, serious moments, good times, bad times. He brings it all together. And at the end, you find out whether or not Uncle Buck is able to succeed and help this family out. And it's a great, great movie. And there's a great scene between him and Macaulay Culkin where he sort of like machine guns questions at him, and he just answers him with all these straight, like one word answers. And it's just a beautifully done scene. And they've used it in the trailer. So most people know the scene, like, how old are you? All the different questions that he asked. I wish I would have written them down. But it's just great, and just shows, like, both of them, the chemistry between them as actors, and Macaulay Culkin's a little kid, and he just felt so comfortable with John Candy that they're able to make this so successful, the movie and that scene and what have you. It's great.
It's my number 3. I love the movie. I love Uncle Buck. Yeah. And I agree. I agree with everything you said. I think it's a different take on the uncle-niece relationship. Is one you don't really see all that much in films. It's more of a father-daughter, mother-son type of aspect, which is what Hughes always seemed to excel at. But then all of a sudden you throw in this, and then there's another relationship that he's going to touch on, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And then it just becomes such a great film. And once again, it just goes to show that John Candy was one of the most underrated actors of our time. And it's a shame that he passed away, because when people see John Candy, they remember him from, Stripes and Blues Brothers and all these big, heavy comedic type roles. And they don't remember the films where, or they only remember, like in Uncle Buck, he does goofy things, and Planes, Trains, Automobiles does goofy things, but he tempers that with an immense amount of heart and a wonderful acting ability. Just the way that he can portray his emotions on his face. You wouldn't think a guy that, you think like a John Candy is like a John Belushi type. You just thought was John Belushi was just a terror, would just go crazy and stuff like that. And John Candy was sort of a similar way. But then you realize when you get into these John Hughes films, like the Planes, Trains, Automobiles, and especially with Uncle Buck, which was a huge spotlight for John Candy. And this didn't make my list, but there was a movie that Hughes also wrote called Only the Lonely, which was also a John Candy film where he had an overbearing mother, and he has to, and that's an adult son mother relationship is what Hughes was looking at that one, as he falls in love with a girl, but the mother wants to be the only girl in her son's life, and so she becomes sort of a terror. Even though I think it's Ali Sheedy might actually be the girl in Only the Lonely that John Candy falls for, and it's amazing. I guess it would be my number 12 after Pretty in Pink, because Only the Lonely is a great film also, but it's one of those that you don't get a lot about, and there's some other aspects of it that turns me off about it, but it just goes to show that John Candy was a wonderful actor. And this Uncle Buck, it was successful, and it showed that John Candy was a force to be reckoned with. He has a great sequence. You covered it absolutely beautifully. I don't have much more to say than that. That's my number 3, and we'll get to that when when I get to my number 3, I'll just skip over and say, hey, here's your number 2, Jerry. But my number 5 is going to surprise some people probably, because this might be higher up on other people's lists. Not just necessarily yours, Jerry, but other people's. Breakfast Club is number 5 for me. Now, everyone considers, I think, when they hear John Hughes, the first movie that usually comes to a lot of people's minds is Breakfast Club. Secondary is Ferris Bueller. But I think Breakfast Club is the one that really resonates with people. And it does. It resonates with people. But in this case, Breakfast Club... and I think I know why it's number 5 on my list. And we've had discussions about my personal feelings about things as well. This film did exactly what it was supposed to do. It got you. It was 1985. It was let's see, I would be what, 12?
Yeah, me too. Yep.
12. So 12, 13. So I wasn't quite in high school yet, but I had, you had the cliques. You had the cliques in middle school, stuff like that. You had the jocks and the nerds and the criminals and stuff like that. And it's a brilliant idea. Detention on a Saturday. You bring in all these different archetypes: the jock, the beauty, the brain, the flake, and the criminal. And you put them in a room for 8-10 hours and see what happens. And that's exactly what Breakfast Club is. I think it's the only one he did that I can think of, top of my head, that was rated R. And I'm still trying. That still gets me a little bit. Is it because of the situations that come up of it? Because there's a lot of heavy stuff that gets discussed.
I think that's why. Yeah, I think it's like their background stories. I think that's why, because they are very heavy. There's
discussions of suicide, bullying, abuse. Just all the, and then you have the teacher. The assistant principal. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name right now.
I keep thinking it's Skinner because I'm thinking of The Simpsons, but it's not Skinner. Yeah,
but it's him. The assistant principal is the biggest douchebag you've ever met. And they try, and it works a little bit, but I love the fact that Hughes is spending so much time with the kids that he does have one scene near the end of the film where we have the assistant principal talking to the only other adult at the school, which is the janitor, about why he is reacting the way he does to these kids, bullying them, picking on them, being a hard ass, being an asshole. And it still makes him sound like an asshole.
Can't win.
Just what he's saying about why he's such a hard ass and why he's an asshole to these kids. It's because you're an asshole. You might be trying to code it with, oh, well, I don't want them to take care of me when I get older because that's what they're going to be doing because they're all losers. That's not a really good way to do it. Right. You should be more nurturing. You should be trying to help these people. But and I understand you need to have assistant principal needs to be a hard ass, but you also need to have a little bit of discipline and helping of the kids. You can't just be a complete hard ass. You need to help them out. So if they have mental issues, if they have emotional issues or whatever, you can't keep suspending them. You can't expel them unless they do something really, really terrible. Obviously, you got to try to figure out how to get them to calm down a little bit. And at the same time, they don't quite understand that the kids are going through so much that it would kill an adult. I mean, you've got, high school was awful. I mean, Breakfast Club is a great example of what high school is like. It might be a little bit extreme because I don't remember there ever being quite the differentiation between everybody. Yeah, we had little cliques, but we all sort of mixed together and we were all okay. I mean, yeah, I got bullied, but I was never, looked down upon by the jocks of not being a jock, or, some of my friends, and I'm not just saying this, some of my friends were like the princesses, the cheerleaders. Unfortunately, I was all friend zoned, so I didn't have any chance whatsoever. Yeah, I was the ducky, absolutely. I had no chance with them. But they weren't bitches to me, as it were. They liked me. It was kind of nice. So it didn't quite have the extreme that the Breakfast Club shows, but I think what Hughes was trying to do was he's taking a look at the different, you see the stereotypes. These are the stereotypes. You introduce the stereotypes. This is the brain, the jock, blah, 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 like that. And they act like that. Molly Ringwald's like, oh, this is terrible. I got to eat my sushi out of this thing, blah, blah, blah. And Judd Nelson's all like, yeah, I'm a tough guy. Look, I'm shooting lighting matches off my hand and on my chin. And I'm a badass, And Ali Sheedy is a toe flake, blah, 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 blah. And then, Emilio Estevez, my favorite line Emilio Estevez says is, it's going to take two hits. The two hits to knock you down. Me hitting you and you hitting the floor, or something like that, And then Anthony Michael Hall being the geek, but not quite as extreme as he was in 16 Candles, as more along the lines like, I'm in the physics club and all this stuff. So and that's really good too, because he had played the geek in Weird Science. Well, Weird Science came after Breakfast Club, but he played the geek in 16 Candles. And that was a more outlandish, crazy geek. This was your more stereotypical geek who was the bookworm, the one who didn't have very many friends, Physics Club, and was picked on by everybody. And then gradually, and this is what makes the movie so great, is while they're together, their barriers start breaking down when they're not around the rest of their crew. And you begin to see that maybe these people could be friends, and you're left up in the air with what happens at the end of the film, where the walls have now fully been destroyed and they're all friends. And I think Anthony Michael Hall has the line in the film is like, is this what it's going to be like on Monday? Or Emilio Estevez or someone, or Molly might have even said it. I don't know. It was like, if Brian comes up to you, talking to Judd Nelson, are you going to ignore him again? Are you going to make fun of him again? After everything we've been through today, are things going to go back to normal on Monday? And Judd Nelson sort of takes an affront to that. Like, of course it's not going to be that way. Right. But it probably would be, because in this case, the walls are down. Okay. And you're not around the rest of your crew, but once you get with your crew again, it's a completely different story.
Yeah. So I don't think that they would be. I think it would just go back to the way it was, because it's high school mentality, and they do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and in the end, they also focus with, Molly Ringwald is apparently going to be dating Judd Nelson.
Yeah. They have.
How's that going to work? I mean, I guess she wants to get back at her, parents, as a thing like that. And then you've got Emilio Estevez, who's able to turn Ali Sheedy's flaky character into a knockout again. Is that going to keep? I don't think it is.
Well, she doesn't go to their school.
Oh, she doesn't?
No. Oh. She didn't have detention. She just walked in.
Oh, I thought she was in there. Okay.
No, she just walks in. When they all tell their story, they're like, what's your story? She's like, no, I just walked in here today and hung out.
I don't remember that, but okay. So that's my number 5.
Okay. My number 4 is Christmas Vacation, which should be a shocker because I didn't make it my number 1. But I thought there were other, because this is a John Hughes list, and he has a lot of great stuff. And as much as I adore Christmas Vacation, it fell in right at number 4. But yeah, you discussed everything there was to discuss about it. We've discussed it in many other shows. Clark Griswold is just the bomb. And like you said, Chevy Chase's personality aside, or whatever he's like in real life, he just really nails it. Clark Griswold is that character. He's that dad. He's that father. He's that husband. He is that family man, and he's like Mr. everybody. You know what I mean, so to speak. Like every man can relate to Clark Griswold, and it's such a perfect character. So yeah, number 4 is my Christification.
I'm proud
Yes.
of you for not making number
That's
one.
right. That's right.
I know it's one of your favorite movies. It is one of your favorite movies, and it's one of my favorites too. I love it. It's a great film, and it would probably be up there in my top 3, probably, of Christmas movies. So, which we've never actually done before. Maybe we can do that this Christmas. We've always talked about other aspects of Christmas. Maybe we can talk about Christmas movies. So we can talk about Christmas Vacation again. We'll fit it in somehow every episode.
Right. My challenge will be never to make it number 1.
My number 4 is, again, probably going to be a shock to everybody. Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller's Day Off was, for the longest time, I didn't like it that much. I liked it, but it was just something about it. It was the last one of Hughes's films that I got on DVD. I had all the other ones, and a lot of the ones I got all these other ones. Like, I got Career Opportunities before I got Ferris Bueller. So, and it's just because
Matthew Broderick.
I think it's because of Matthew Broderick's character, who gets away. Maybe I'm the Jennifer Grey character, because
the bitter sister.
Because he gets away with everything. Yeah. Everything goes his way, and everybody loves him. And that's got to be hard, being the older sister, because she is older than he is. The older sister, to have to deal with your younger brother being the center of attention, which I guess I should expect, because that's how my sister probably viewed me, as being, since I was the youngest in my family. Yeah. My sister was the oldest. She felt that maybe she was treated a little bit more unfair than I was when I was her, the same age as she was at that time, that I got away with a lot more than she did. So maybe it just touches a little too close.
I'm sure you did, because I have little brothers, so I know that you did.
but to me, though, I don't like the fact that he gets away with everything, and he does. He's able to get away with everything, but then therein lies why the film is good. Because, to be honest, you need to have this outlandish type of character like Ferris is, the guy that is the most popular guy in school, is so charismatic, but then you see kind of a different side of him a little bit in this film. He still shows his typical narcissistic self, as it were, but you start digging a little deeper into things. And to be honest, this is more what's his friend's name?
Cameron.
What?
Cameron,
yes.
Yeah.
This is more of Cameron's film, because Cameron is the one that's stuck being, well, not stuck, he's best friends with Ferris.
But he's sort of in the shadow too.
Yeah, he's in the shadow. It's very similar to Ron Weasley and Harry Potter. If you want to get Harry Potter involved.
Yeah, sort of.
Ferris Bueller's Harry Potter, and Ron Weasley, and Cameron is Ron Weasley. But everyone sees Ferris. Everybody loves Ferris, and Cameron is just sort of is his best friend, and is the one that Ferris leans on when he needs to, and is good. And to be fair, is friends with him. Mm-hmm. And he makes the statement is like, I'm doing this because I gotta kick Cameron's in the pants to get him moving. He doesn't do anything crazy, and I need him to at least once experience what my life is like. And that's what he is able to do with this situation. And the fact is, I don't like how his parents fawn all over Ferris, they fawn all over him, and then they sort of treat Jennifer Grey as just sort of, okay, you're my oldest, whatever. You don't really see a lot of, maybe love towards her. I guess maybe at the same time, though, she is the uptight, older teenage girl, and that's the situation they're usually in. But in the end, you get basically another travel movie for the most part, but in this case, it's just going into Chicago and having a fun time in one day, instead of going to Wally World or going out to Chicago from New York for Thanksgiving. You get another sort of travel movie, and you get the trio. You've got Ferris's girlfriend, and you've got Cameron, and you got Ferris. and they go and they have all these adventures. Meanwhile, Mr. Rooney, Jeffrey Jones, again, I think he's assistant principal again, or is he guidance counselor? He might be the guidance counselor. He's a principal. Yeah. In this case, the principal is the one who's trying to hunt him down, and not the assistant principal like it was in Breakfast Club. It's the principal and trying to catch him in the act. And Jennifer Grey knows he's faking, and she's also trying to get him in trouble so that, you know, his parents will finally see that he's not the perfect child. And maybe that's why she's upset, is because they look at him as the perfect child, and they look at her as, okay, we had her, we made all our mistakes with her, and now we're going to do everything to our perfect child and, you know, treat her like dirt. And I guess maybe that's what Hughes was trying to convey through his script, is that it's probably not true that her parents hate her. I mean, parents love their kids regardless. It's just, it's that age, you know, the age where, you know, she's overshadowed by a younger brother, and she's at that 16, 17 years, 18. I guess she's got to be older than that, because Ferris is going to get a car. They want to get Ferris a car, so he's got to be at least 16. So she's probably maybe a senior and he's a junior, maybe. About a year difference between them, something like that. And so you get that, and it's just kind of, I can understand. But then you've got Jeffrey Jones who's trying to catch him in the act, and of course everything that could happen happens to him. I love the fact that he goes into a bar and or whatever, or a video arcade or something like that, and sees someone wearing, looks like Ferris's jacket, and walks up to him and says, "Your ass is mine." Turns out to be a short-haired girl who punches him in the face, which is great. Or the neighbor's dog who attacks him, you know. Or
he sits on the bus with that gross girl.
Yeah, the gross girl like that, you know. I got some gummy bears in my pocket. They're little warm. And just the look of awful horror in his face. He's just like, oh.
And then that song, which was so unique when it came out. You know, I don't know what it's called, but that's
Bow
Bow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's Oh Yeah by Yellow. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
I never knew what it was called.
Of course, if YouTube would have let me play some songs, I might have played that song to begin the episode. But that therein once again lies how John Hughes is really good about making music. I can't believe I didn't talk about Don't You Forget About Me, Breakfast Club. Maybe you'll talk about Breakfast Club later, so we can talk about that soon. But yeah, once again, iconic song. Oh Yeah by Yellow is an iconic song, and it portrays really well. But then, you know, you get, you know, it's really from Cameron's viewpoint, and it makes sense that it's Ferris and he's the one who's narrating the movie and stuff like that, and he's breaking the fourth wall, which is great. So he's talking to the audience, and I love that too. And then I guess what happened is I watched Ferris a few years ago, you know, after putting it off for so long. I actually learned I enjoyed it a little bit more than I thought I did. That's why, hence it's number 4 on my list and not like number 9. But I do like it more nowadays that I've been watching it. You know, and it's true. Whenever you get older, you know, something you've seen when you were younger takes on a new perspective. And maybe that's what happened with Ferris. So again, Ferris is a good film. I'm sure you're going to talk about that too. So I'll end it there. So you're number 3.
My number 3 is Home Alone, which we discussed. And funny that you just said how it's a different perspective, because I read a joke somewhere online that says, you know, you're getting older when you watch Home Alone, and the only thought that pops in your head is, I wonder how much the mortgage is on that house every month. Because I do live in that huge, beautiful house. And it's true, like your mindset just goes somewhere completely different.
Probably a couple $1 million, probably.
But yeah, great movie. And, you know, it's interesting that you said it was his most successful, because I remember during Christmas vacation, you know, our school vacation, going to the movies with my friend. And I don't remember what movie we saw, but Home Alone was also playing. And we had like just a small, like 5-plex, 5 cinema movie theater in my hometown.
Right.
And we were in our movie, and Home Alone was playing next door at the same time. And the audience was laughing so loud that we could hear them through the walls to our movie. And I thought that was really cool. Like, you know, like, oh, and then eventually I did go to see it. But, and then another cool thing too is, I don't know if you remember this, but they actually made a poster of his, you know, his little floor plan that
Oh
he
no, I didn't know
created.
that. No.
Yeah, and people were buying the poster and hanging it up in their bedroom. So they recreated that as a poster.
Oh, very cool.
His whole his whole scheme and whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
his plan.
yeah.
Yeah, I know what it's like because I in my town we had a 2 cinema right down the street from my house, so we could walk to that. And then up in Towson, there was another 2 cinema, which you had to actually take the bus or drive out there. And then you go out a little bit further to York Ridge, which was oh my God, it's 4. There's 4. Oh my God. And then after that, it was Timonium, which was 3. Now, Timonium had 3 because it had one of the first big multiplex one. I mean,
Fancy.
They probably could have made 2. They probably could have made 2 theaters out of that spot, but they would put the big films in that one, and then the smaller ones would be in the other ones. And then we had the Senator, which was also a bit further down the street, but that was a classic, old style. It still is. It's a historical landmark in Baltimore, and it's right down the street from where I grew up and where my mom still lives. And so I remember. It was after Christmas, but it was during that Christmas break. And at the time, my sister was dating a guy who ended up turning to be my brother-in-law. So eventually, but it was
her future husband.
Yeah, they were still but I was just trying to make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, you're right. But they were just starting to date during that time, so it was still early in their relationship, and he was down for whatever for a couple of days or the weekend or whatever. So we walked to see Home Alone after Christmas to this theater, which is where it's playing. And I remember because it had snowed earlier, so we were walking through the mountains of snow and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. My friend Brian worked there, so I think he let us in for free. But it's a great film. It's one of my favorite Christmas ones. It's got a great iconic score by John Williams, and I just love Chris Columbus's direction. And we already talked about my number 3 also is Uncle Buck. So awesome. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Oh, we already did, because you already did your Uncle Buck. So you did it number 5 or something like that. So you're number 2 then.
My number 2 is Ferris Bueller. I think this is what's going to happen now. So, you said a lot. What I thought was great about it was, I don't know, I liked it. I don't know. I think it's funny that he was getting away with murder. And I did want to root for him. And I love that he brought the audience in. Like you said, what's that called? Breaking the fourth wall. Yeah. The fourth wall. Yeah. I love that he made us part of his experience. And very, very, very funny small little cameo by Charlie Sheen. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
In the jail. Yeah,
in the jail. Jennifer Grey. Yeah. He's like, it was so great because he was like the one that said what everybody wanted to say to her. Yeah. Maybe you're the problem.
Yeah. And she was an uber teenage impossible bitch, like this perfectionist. And a whole part, the reason why she was so perfect was because she wanted her parents' exception, and instead they were giving it to Ferris, and he was like this fuck up, but they kept giving it to him instead, and that was making her even more angsty or whatever. But I thought of something when you were bringing her up. Did you ever watch Phineas and Ferb? Do your kids watch Phineas and Ferb?
Yes.
And it made me think of Candace, because the whole premise of Phineas and Ferb is they not that they do wrong, but they do all these crazy things in their backyard, and their sister is hell-bent on getting them caught. And I was like, oh, it's like a little mini Ferris Bueller. I never thought of that before.
No, it is so great because all the weirdest things in the whole world happen to make these things disappear. Right. Like they've got the big giant roller coaster in their backyard, and then Doofenshmirtz's shrink ray comes and shrinks it just as the mom's coming through, and then it disappears. It's like, whoa, what happened? It was just here, and she's like, "You were crazy, Candace. Come back." But no, that's Phineas and Ferb is a great cartoon. It was fantastic, and I think it was deliberate on their part to have it sort of similar to have like the Ferris Bueller sister trying to do that. So. And it's great. I mean, they filmed it live in Chicago. It wasn't filmed in a set or studio. They actually went to Chicago. It was some really great lines. The Sausage King of the Midwest or whatever it was. And the computer. I love the computer vomiting when he had to pretend to be vomiting. He goes on the phone. They're like, "Oh God, you're dying!" And then all of a sudden you see Ferris, save Ferris up on the walls of the water tower, and just all over people's notebooks. And that's the scene at the end when Rooney's on the bus and he sees on the notebook it says "Save Ferris," and he's like, "Oh my God!"
And he gets offered those warm gummies.
There's some gummy bears. They've been in my pocket. I just amazing talk. And then he's just got this look on his face. He's like he's in utter hell, and it is so fun. Now, what's interesting about it also is it's still iconic because the movie Deadpool that came out this weekend, they have a post-credit sequence, and I read about it. I haven't watched it yet, but I read about it. It is almost an exact shot for shot of the post-credit sequence in Ferris, where he's in the shower and he's got the towel in his head. And he says, "Go on, go home. What are you still doing here?" It's basically Deadpool doing that in his full costume. He's got the towel on his head and wrapped around. He says, "What are you doing here? There's nothing left. We haven't made Deadpool 2 yet, go away." So it's just kind of funny that still resonates now.
Yeah,
and it's a joke that it's still in there. So that was your number 2, right?
Yes.
My number 2, I don't think is going to be on your list because I think I know what your number 1 is. But my number 2 is the homage I'm doing with this.
Okay.
It's Weird Science, only because it is one of the absolute funniest films I have ever seen. And I think it was a way for John Hughes to wipe the Breakfast Club off of him, because the Breakfast Club is so emotional, so dramatic, so draining. And the funny thing is, both movies came out in the same year. 85, I think. And so you had Breakfast Club came out first. I think it was around the March time it came out. And then Weird Science came out like in August. So the fact that he was able to film both of these films, I think he filmed it in the same school because I think Shermer High School was his go-to. That I think Sam from 16 Candles goes there, and I think the Breakfast Club went to there, and I think the Weird Science kids were there too, because I think at the end they show an exterior that says Shermer High School. So I think what he did basically was he filmed Breakfast Club, he had the set already, and he said, "You know what? I need to go absolutely insane because this is so heavy dramatic, and I got my drama out of me. I need to go back and get some massive comedy." And that's where Weird Science comes from, because Weird Science has no drama in it. It is a pure hilarious comedy that is, I guess, is more geared towards guys, I would suppose, because it is, two nerdy guys.
Yeah, we're on your head, you think?
Yes. And then your dream girls, Kelly LeBrock. Your dream, they create their dream girl, but the basic premise is Anthony Michael Hall plays a nerd again. This time, actually, he's more of a geek. He's not as smart as his character in Breakfast Club. He's sort of similar to Farmer Ted, but with Ted was sort of the king of the geeks. In this case, in Weird Science, his character, Geri, only has one friend, and that's Wyatt, played by Ilian something or other, who's not even an actor anymore. And so they're not popular, and they're bullied by young Robert Downey Jr., which is great. Which is good to see young Robert Downey Jr. being a total dick in this. And it makes you think, it's like, hey, it's young Tony Stark in high school.
That's right.
Well, why not? Tony Stark's a dick, so why not? He's a dick in Weird Science too.
That's true.
Yeah, and also, they have the computer thing, so he's getting obsessed with computers. Like, I must meet a woman out of a computer, so why don't I make computers my usual thing? So it's young, and then he has a change in his personality, and then he's Tony Stark in college and back to school. So he becomes a guy trying to save everything.
Back to school.
Yeah, back to school. He plays a guy who's always trying to protest the football
demand authority.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. You got both aspects. You got the dick computer guy and the one who wants to save the world combined. So there you go. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark in Weird Science and in Back to School. So there you go.
Always Tony Stark.
Conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory. Yes. Yeah.
But regardless, so
anyway, back to Weird Science.
Because there's an even better performance in this film. I'm gonna get to that in a second. Wyatt's parents are going to go away for the weekend on a trip or family trip or whatever, and they're leaving Wyatt's older brother Chet, played by Bill Paxton, in charge. He's like a 20-year-old grunt type of guy who's totally not very smart. He's kind of an asshole, and I'll get to him in a few minutes because he is phenomenal in this film. So Geri and Wyatt are left alone pretty much to do their own thing, and so they're getting so angry with the fact that they can't get chicks because they're guys. They're 16 years old. They're horny. They don't have girlfriends. They want to experience it. So they say we should make a woman. Okay, that's not what I would think to do, but we've got a computer, old style, 1980s style computer. Wyatt is pretty smart. Gary's pretty smart. Let's work together and let's create a woman. So they create this elaborate way of breaking into like the Defense Department's computer and getting a lightning bolt and making a Barbie doll up, and they create a woman on this thing and their ideal dream woman, and miraculously, guess what? It works, and out comes Kelly LeBrock, gorgeous, British, accented, and got beautiful and all that, but she's also a hard ass bitch. And she's not your typical, she'll say, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'm at your command. But these guys are so dorky towards women. They have no idea what they want to do. So the first thing they decide to do is let's take a shower together. So she gets naked. She's in the shower. And they're wearing shorts and like socks. And she's like, you really have no concept of what it is. So she's like, okay, I got to get you guys to break out of your shell a little bit. So at this point, they're no longer in control. Again, as it is, women are in control, which I'm totally glad about saying that women are in control of us. I'll be gladly saying that. Because damn, these bras are hot as hell, man.
They're uncomfortable, huh?
Very. Woof, I'm almost ready to take them off. No, I know what it's like. Oh, yes, I'm done work. Take them off. But so at this point now, Kelly LeBrock says, I'm going to take control now, and we're gonna open you guys up. So then she takes them she creates these awesome Lamborghinis, and they drive to a local blues bar, and they have, they get drunk and stuff like that. And one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie is when Anthony Michael Hall is totally shit-faced, and he's talking like this. It's like, hey, man, what's going on, man? And me and my friend Geri, we make fun of that voice all the time, and they're like, every damn night on the telephone? How the hell, man? You think it's about the telephone, man? It's just this back and forth. It's just one of the greatest scenes in the film. And then she continues to be in control. She's trying to get them to open up and do more things and have a little bit more experience. She's the one who's controlling them and pushing them into these situations that they think they want to be involved with, but then she's taking them a little bit to the extreme, she's taking a little bit to the extreme, and she's the one who's in charge of them. But they've got a gorgeous woman, they're doing what she wants to do, and she's helping them in the end. So then we get introduced to Chet, who I wrote a blog about this a long time ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, when I used to have a blog that worked. My problem with my blog was I would usually write it at work, and something happened at work where I couldn't get in to edit a blog I was working on. It wasn't allowing me to do it. And I don't know what had happened. So I just said, heck with it. And then I started doing this show. So I got all my blogging out on this show.
That's right. Verbal.
But before then, I used to do a series of blogs called Greatest Performances, which, to be fair, I stole from the late lamented Movie Line magazine. They used to focus on a performance by an actor and talk about how great it was. So one of the first ones I ever did was Bill Paxton as Chet, because he is the absolute worst big brother in the whole world. He bullies his younger brother. He extorts money from him. Says, you went out and got drunk. You know what? I'm going to tell mom and dad. And then Wyatt's like, no, don't tell mom and dad. What can I do? All right, well, I think your savings account will cover that. Your $200, we'll save that. Or, give me all your desserts for a month or something like that. So he would extort stuff so that he wouldn't tell his parents that Wyatt screwed around, because Wyatt didn't want to get in trouble with his parents. It's just a typical fear. I never wanted to get in trouble with my parents, so I never fought back when I was bullied because I was afraid I was going to get in trouble. So Wyatt, and that was the one thing with Wyatt that Kelly LeBrock's character was trying to get him out of that shell where he was being extorted and to stand up for yourself, So that was her project with him. And then Geri, well, that was just sort of it's Anthony Michael Hall. So you're just, he's already insane as it is. So there's really not much work she needs to do with him. So gradually he's got the shaved head, and he's got the gung-ho Marine sort of attitude, but he's not as smart. He's really dumb. And so he gives the movie an out, says, I'm going to go pheasant hunting. You two guys, I think you can handle it yourselves. Don't do anything stupid. I'll be back. If you do something stupid, you're in a lot of trouble, and I'm going to kick your ass or whatever. So he goes. So that gets Chet out of the door. So then Kelly LeBrock is like, let's have a party. If you guys want to go to a party, you got a big enough house, let's throw a party. So they spread the word, and of course the massive high school parties you always see, parodied. Everyone comes in. The girls that they like, Robert Downey Jr. is there. The guys from the bar that they went to are there, and it just becomes what you expect of a typical high school comedy. There's drinking and destruction of property and people having sex and doing drugs and fighting and damaging the house beyond repair and all kinds of crazy stuff. And Geri and Wyatt had been talking about doing this for years. They wanted to have parties like this because they thought it was a cool thing. And they had the party and they don't like it.
Right.
Because they're damaging stuff and no one's talking to them. And it's not fun. It's not just because no one's talking to them. It's just like, there's too many people. There's too much going on and it's not fun. So they're beginning to see that the light of how great, the popular people have it is actually not that great.
Yep.
Of course, Kelly LeBrock is like, you know what? You guys are still too pussified, so we got to open up a little bit. And then the movie goes in a totally different direction where she brings in mutant bikers that come off of the Mad Max set to come in and start wrecking havoc in the house. And then they have to defend their house from these people. And that's what breaks through to their manliness. And then they get the girls at the end and stuff like that. And then, of course, you expect, okay, they've jumped over that hurdle. Everything's good. The house is still a wreck. And so they spend the night with their girlfriends in the house. And guess who comes back in the morning? Mr. Chet comes back. And he's like, what the hell is going on here? And he's like, and then Wyatt reverts back to his, I'm sorry, I'll do whatever you want me to do, Chet. And he's like, man, this is going to be like your first 20 paychecks when you get out of college, it's to cover this for me, not telling mom and dad about this. And that's when Kelly LeBrock gets introduced to Chet and they have a little back and forth and she ends up teaching him a lesson as well and then solves all the problems and everything happens like that. It's a big happy ending at the end, but it's just a purely comedic, hilarious, doesn't make any sense film, but you know what? It's fun. And I think it was Hughes's way of saying, I got to get Breakfast Club out of my system. I can't linger on it. It's dramatic. It was heavy. I need to bust loose a little bit and I need to get back into, and there's a little bit of heart in it, but this is a pure comedy and it's watching John Hughes just do straight up comedy. And that's my number 2, a bit more extended than I wanted to talk about it, but you know how I am, Geri. You're used to it.
It's fine.
But we still got time, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't blame him for wanting to do something like that. I'm sure they all feel that way after 6 to 9 months of working on a film and being so inundated with, everything that's involved in making that film, from the story to the emotions to what have you. But yeah, they do just want to be able to cut loose, and the fact that he had that freedom to do that and kind of switch genres that way. That there's a beauty in that. Not everybody has that opportunity. So yeah, that's great. Yeah. So my number 1 is The Breakfast Club. I love The Breakfast Club, and 2 words, John Bender, loved. Judd Nelson, you're going on and on about all the women in your movies. Well, Judd Nelson did it for me, man. Loved him. And, I don't know how much more I can add because you discussed it pretty well, but I will say I graduated in a class of 553 kids. It was a big class, and we did have all 5 stereotypes, genres, however you want to refer to them. Yeah, we did have all those. We had the rebel, we had the jock, of course. We had the princess, the outcast.
But were they separated on their own? Because with my high school, we had all them also, but they all intermingled a little bit. Were yours so separated and cliquey?
Yeah,
okay.
Because there was just so many people. So you had like, this, I guess the general population, maybe there were a couple hundred who did all sort of blend all together. And then you had sort of these standout groups who were, exactly what he created in each of those characters. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I guess for me, it was more relatable because of that, and because I came from such a huge class, because I remember going to college, and a lot of my classmates were like, wow, we graduated a class of 100 or 200. So my high school class was huge. And then I met people who graduated out of classes of like 1,000.
Holy cow.
And then I was like, wow, like, are you kidding me? Yeah, because I went to a regional school. So we were 6 middle schools who all came together, which is why which is why it was so big. Yeah, it's a regional high school. Yeah, and it's still that big. And I think by the time my youngest brother, who's 6 years younger, went, I want to say his class was probably pushing 1,000 at that point. Like the population just grew. Yeah, because we went from being like all farmland to then the farms getting sold off and like townhouses and condo developments being built here and there and everywhere. And so the population just blew up.
Okay, that makes sense then, because with me, my high school, as I said, I had the 100, 200 people in my class. And what had happened was, before I got to high school, before my sister got to high school, this happened back in the 60s, early 70s, whatever, Towson High School was the high school. It was the one that was everybody from Towson to Lutherville to Timonium, stuff like that, would come out and they would go to school there. They were bussed in from Timonium, which is about maybe 10, 15 minutes away from Towson. So they were bussed in from there because there was nothing out there, because Hunt Valley was more like that. It was Hunt Valley. I mean, it was a farmland valley type of thing. But it got to be so bad, I guess, in the 70s, that the Baltimore County government and the school system decided, you know what, we can't have this. This is just putting too much strain. Towson High School is already a really old school anyway. When I started going and when my sister started going, it came out in like 46. It was like 1946 when it was built. So it was old. And it was starting to show some wear a little bit, especially with all the people in 1970s. So they built Delaney High School, which became our rivals, and which is the reason why they became our rivals, because basically they took half of our population and sent them to Delaney, which was the Timonium and the Lutherville people. They went out, maybe not Lutherville. Lutherville was sort of split, because Lutherville is that halfway point between Timonium, Hunt Valley, and Towson. And with Hunt Valley starting to get developed also, like your area was too, there were more houses out there. So then Delaney was a newer school. And so they started getting a complex about how great they were, because they had all the modern stuff like that. And Towson was still this old, run down type of thing. We got our modern stuff, but that was the seeds of our rivalry. And that's one of the biggest rivalries in Baltimore County is Towson Delaney. It always was. And I feel very privileged that I was a part of that, because it's such great when you have such a deep hatred of someone else, much like I have with the Pittsburgh Steelers, being a Ravens fan. It gives me a chance to remember that. But just the fact that we would go, we invaded Delaney High School when our basketball teams played in the championship, and just the back and forth, the yelling and screaming, it was so loud in that stadium that it was like almost a professional game or a college game, and it was so much fun. We lost, but it's still, so it was at their home turf. They got to nail us and all this stuff. So it was, but we always wanted to beat Delaney. It was always our big game. Homecoming usually was around. It was usually with Delaney. Our football was usually with Delaney. Towson was our homecoming game, which was an added bonus to have a good game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other connection, which I wanted to talk about, which I missed when I talked about, was the iconic song "Don't You Forget About Me."
Yes. And then he puts his fist up at the end.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a great song by Simple Minds. It's a fantastic. Every time you hear the song, I still get chills, because I still love the song so much. And again, it goes to show you that Hughes has the pulse of his group, because that was a hugely popular song when it appeared in Breakfast Club. It became so huge, so popular, and made Simply Red be Simple Minds rather, made Simple Minds be as popular as they were, because they only had like maybe one other really popular song.
Yeah, they were an alternative group, but yeah, that sort of put them into the mainstream. Yeah.
And so what our high school did was, every year, every high school got to pick a class song, And when we had our senior year of we took over our newspaper, was our senior newspaper, so it'd be all about the seniors graduating, stuff like that. And we had this really cool thing where the front page of our newspaper would be our class number with all the students in it. It was a photograph we took a few months before we graduated, and they had it roped out. In this case, it was 91. So they roped it out so there'd be a 91. It says, okay, everybody go find a spot within the 91. So you find a spot in there, and then we had the photographer up on the roof of the school take the picture down there, and that would be the cover of the newspaper. And our class song, of course, was "Don't You Forget About Me." So they played it like at prom, and they played it at homecoming and junior senior prom and stuff like that. So it was always a big thing. So that song is always going to resonate with me. I'm pretty sure I probably played it when I was in college. I had a radio show where I played nothing but movie soundtracks and scores. I'm sure I played that song a bunch of times, probably to end my show sometime too, because it's such a great ending song. The only other great one is Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Thompson Twins for Real Genius. That's the only other really good.
Tears for Fears, right?
No, that's yes, Tears for Fears. Yes. Yeah. It's the only other really good ending song for a movie that every time that one gives me chills also and makes me think it takes you back to these films. But yeah, just the shot of Judd Nelson with the fist up in the air while that song plays, it's fantastic. So it's a good number one. Yeah, Breakfast Club, and maybe Breakfast Club is one of those films that I need to watch again. It's been a while since I've seen it because the heaviness of the drama always sort of turns me off of it, because I like my John Hughes more comedic. Obviously, my number two being Weird Science. What my number one is. So
I know what your number one is. I have to ask you something really quick before you say your number one.
Sure.
Did you try making a Captain Crunch and Pixie stick sandwich? Did you ever try it?
I don't think I did.
And then smushing bread and makes
a crunch. The only other thing I also loved about that also is when Ali Sheedy drew that awesome picture of a winter wonderland and then got all of her dandruff onto it, so it looked like it was snow falling on it. It was like, that's awesome. I love that. And don't get me wrong, yes, Breakfast Club is very dramatic, but there are some really good moments of comedy when they're I guess they bring out the bud, right? They got some marijuana, and I just remember there's the one where Anthony Michael holds his hand up, and then Judd Nelson smacks him, he falls backwards, and they do their dancing in the library.
Yeah, the montage. And he tells the joke while he's walking through the air duct.
And then he falls to the air ducts, and you're like, now that's what it was. We were dropping stuff, we were dropping things. No, we don't know what that is.
They all start coughing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good, it's one of those. And the funny thing also is, she's too young to watch it, but somehow Noelle started asking about it. I don't know how she got around to it, about the different archetypes of Jock, the princess and stuff like that. I guess the class. I mean, I don't see that at her school yet, but maybe she heard something. I don't know.
Yeah, or a TV show. Even some of the cartoons do that.
They could. Yeah, that might be. Maybe she watched like I don't know, many Amazing World of Gumball or something like that, where they did a sort of a parody of that, where they had all the different, and maybe that's what made her think of it. Yes, my number one is 16 Candles, obviously. Long Dylan Dong. I was either going to do Dylan Long Dong, but that sounds a little too bad. And
when you're wearing the bra on your head.
Long Duck Dylan might have been good. Long Duck Dylan might have been good, but I don't know. But I decided Long Dylan Dong, why not? But I adore 16 Candles. It is, I love this movie so much. I can watch this movie over and over and over again, and I have. And it's just because it has that perfect combination of everything. And I think we talked about it the Father's Day last year, because Paul Dooley's father was in my top fathers, because he has. It might not seem like it, but there's that one sequence near the end of the film where he finally discovers, oh God, we forgot her birthday, and comes downstairs and talks to her while she's trying to sleep, but she can't sleep because of all the stuff that happened at the dance. And so she's thinking about other stuff. And so he has an awkward conversation with her, but at the end, he's able to give the movie dad advice. Nobody, you wear the pants in the family. No one can tell you what to do. You're your own person. And it's one of those things that, as a father, that's what I want to strive to be, is a good influence for my daughter, that to try, if she gets to be that age in the teenage years where she's had stuff like that, that I can throw out these little bombos or pieces of advice and make it not sound pretentious or anything like that. I want it to sound that I truly believe it, which I do. I want to help my daughter get through whatever problem she has. And if I have to use a corny phrase or something that seems obvious, I'll do it because I want to give my advice to her. So that's not the only reason why I love this so obviously. I mean, every character is great. Sam, Molly Ringwald is such a great character. And let's face it, she has a crappy day. Who forgets your 16th birthday?
Yeah.
That's kind of sucks. And I totally understand, because you've got the older, prettier daughter that, everybody, is fawning over. It's getting married. Marriage is a big thing. Being married is a big thing. But let's face it, you should remember when your sister's birthday is. And the fact that you put your wedding the day after your sister's birthday is kind of a bitch move. Not that his sister is a great person anyway. Her sister's a bitch anyway. She's kind of bitchy, and you don't really know much about her, because she just has that one sequence where Sam is talking to her and saying that she thinks she's in love, and then the sister says something stupid, and Sam feels like she's got bad mouth or whatever, and she storms out. She's like, "You make someone a bridesmaid and they shit all over you." It's like, can you be any more up to, egotistical or whatever? Yes, it's your wedding day. Yes, I understand. But your younger sister's trying to talk to you, and all you can talk about is yourself, and that's kind of rude. And then you've got her young. She's 4 kids. Damn, you've got the oldest daughter. You got Molly Ringwald. Then you got the brother, who is the worst brother in the whole world. Justin Henry is the actor's name, who had been Academy Award nominated for Kramer versus Kramer. So now he was a little boy in that. So now he's older, and now he's the more the snarky, bratty younger brother, who still has one of the best lines in the world when his mother says to him, "Don't be a smart ass," and he goes, "Well, then I'll be a dumbass then." It's still one of the best lines, and I still use that all the time. And then you've got the younger sister you don't really know much about, because she's hardly in it. And then you've got the awful family, which is something that he likes to write a lot, i.e. Christmas Vacation. You've got the obnoxious parents, both, Paul Dooley's parents and his wife's parents are both obnoxious and loud and old and and your typical, but they are, they're talking about, "Oh, my corns are hurting and I need my water bottle and I need this." And then you've got Grandpa Fred, who takes big dumps and and smokes all the time. And then you got Blanche, who's got the big fingernails, and which is a lot like never mind. Beverly D'Angelo's mother in Christmas Vacation.
It's very similar. What's her face?
And
Romana's mom.
So you get that, and then you've got my boy, Long Duck Dong. There are pops of 16 Candles, Samantha Baker, Ted, Long Duck Dong, and Jake Ryan. They're all pop. They're all in pop form. And guess what else, Geri? There's Breakfast Club ones also. You need to go and get them. They only have the 5 kids right now, so they just have Molly and Emilio and Judd Nelson. You gotta get the Judd Nelson one for you. And they got the Anthony Michael Hall one. They got the Ali Sheedy one. Those are the only ones they have right now. But they're out there. They are out there. So it's just amazing that again, Breakfast Club and 16 Candles and Christmas Vacation they got the pop treatment also. They're pop, they only have a couple of those right now. I think they're more seasonal. You'll probably see more this upcoming Christmas. But they got Clark, and I think they got Eddie, and I'm trying to think. They might only have those 2. They have a very small amount, but they at least have those 2, I think. And Clark's in his I think the Christmas Eve. Is he in the? It might be in the Santa one, or that's a special edition one in the same suit, or he's got the stuff he was wearing before then, like the sweater vest and the
with the
tie and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think he's got that one, but Long Duck Dong's great character. Yes, it is a very Asian stereotype. Yes, it is. I know it is, but you know what? It's funny. And the fact is, he starts off being this shy little guy, and then he goes out into the party, the senior party they're having, and he gets totally trashed and meets up with a woman, and they start, hooking up and stuff like that. And he just totally reverts to a drunken, crazy teenager like what he is, and it's great. And then it's the fact that then you have Jake Ryan, who is the dreamboat that, he's the most popular guy in school. But at the same time, he's got kind of a soul, He's not your typical egotistical.
Right, he's not so vapid. Right.
So vapid and vague. Yeah, he's getting bored with the fact that his girlfriend just likes to party all the time, and he's getting sick of that. He wants to hang out with a girl and maybe watch movies or go to dinner or whatever, and not throw big, ginormous parties that wreck his house because he's rich. Yes, he's rich. He's got lots of money, and his family's money. So, and his girlfriend wrecks his house all the time because they have these big parties. It's a popular thing to do. And he's gotten to the point where he might have liked it early on, but now he's getting older. He's a senior. He's like, you know what? I can't keep doing this shit. I need to do something else. and that's where everything falls into hand. She has the worst birthday, but the next day becomes like the best day of her life because, the whole thing that's happened over this 24-hour period where she, accidentally reveals that she has a crush on Jake Ryan on the little sex test that he intercepts and sees that. And then he's got that sequence, which is so funny, where he and his buddy are doing the chin-ups and they're talking about her. And the guy's a douchebag. He's like, yeah, small tits, yeah, I don't think about her or whatever. And then it pulls back and they're standing and they're just lifting their necks up, doing the pull-ups. They're not really doing pull-ups, but it's a neat little conversation there. And so, and then gradually you have the dance, and then all of a sudden happens the dance. You got Farmer Ted, you talked about already. Anthony Michael Hall is the biggest geek there ever was, but he's the king of the geeks. You got a almost, well, he's fairly recognizable. John Cusack's in that. He plays one of, I know his sister is too. Joan Cusack is the other one, the one who's got the neck brace.
Yes.
She's in it as well. And and that's the other thing also that's great about this is you got some of these secondary characters, these background characters that come to the forefront a little bit because it's supposed to be Samantha's story.
Yeah.
Her horrible 16th birthday, her sister's wedding and stuff like that, and all the stuff that's happened with her family. But then you get these little side stories. You get the side story about Farmer Ted, is having the luckiest day of his night. He convinces Samantha to give him her underwear so he can prove to everybody that he scored. That he scored with her. And then he
she presents him.
And he charges $1 a piece or $2 a piece or something like that to see him. And they all now think he's had sex with her. And then they have enough money. They hear about the senior party. It's like, hey, let's go to the senior party. We're flying high right now. We got all this money. We got a girl's underpants. We're great. They go to the senior party. Long Duck Dong is the one that lets them in. He's drunk. He lets them in. They come in. And the first thing they do is they ruin the football team's beer can pyramid. It's the funniest scene where they got this pyramid. Anthony Michael Hall leans down on it, knocks it over, and he goes, very nice, very nice. We're here for 10 minutes, and I'm at a loss. And he walks away. And then John Cusack is like, real smooth, Cliff, and he walks away. So then you got the other nerd guy who stands there, and the jocks are getting ready to beat him up. It's like, you're such a jerk.
Coffee table. Doesn't one of them end up in the glass coffee table?
Anthony Michael Hall does at the end. So the party goes on, and eventually everybody leaves, and Jake Ryan goes out and sees the damage that's going through his house and the outside. Long Duck Dong, drunk, falls out of the tree and lands on him. And then he takes him back to where he believes, I guess he goes, and then comes back to the house and then clears off the coffee table. And there's Anthony Michael Hall to the coffee table. And so Anthony Michael Hall and him have the conversation about how Sam loves Jake Ryan. And, I didn't have sex with her, but she gave me her underwear because she's that kind of a cool chick.
Right.
And then I love the fact that, he has such respect for her, despite the fact that he had people pay money to see her underwear. The fact that he said, if all you want off of her is a piece of ass, either I'll do it or I'll get someone bigger than me to kick your ass. He's got such a protectiveness on Sam because she was nice to him and did a favor for him. And if Jake just wants to fuck her and leave her, whatever, he's going to kick his ass. He might get his ass beat, but he's going to try to defend her honor.
To defend her, yeah.
And so that shows a little bit of a nice edge to Anthony Michael Hall. So, of course, Jake Ryan's not that type of guy. He's like, okay, I'll let you take home my drunk girlfriend, okay? I'm not – I don't want to really do this anymore. She's so blitzed. She'll think it's me. You can do – basically, he's telling her you can do whatever you want to her, which is this is kind of creepy,
Yeah. It's sort of like the Revenge of the Nerds when he's dressed up like Darth Vader.
Yeah, exactly. It was 1984. It was a different time.
Yeah.
That's a horrible thing to say, Dylan. Stop it, But it leaves that, and then so of course he takes her home. She thinks he's Jake Ryan, and then he's able to continue to show his rep by getting his friends to photograph her and him together. Of course, it doesn't work because they get just his eye. That's the funny thing. Yeah. And then he ends up having sex with her anyway. And then she wakes up in the car and they have a conversation. And then she realizes that Popular Girl's like, you know what? I never really dated a freshman. I'm going to try it now. And they start a relationship, which is kind of weird also, but yeah, but everything has to work out happily,
Yeah.
Ed, who's a good guy, ends up with the popular girl. Sam, who's a good girl, ends up with the popular guy. Everyone's happy, So it's just, in the end, it's just a fun, loving 24-hour period and, teenager's life that was a lot. It's a Friday and a Saturday, Friday night and a Saturday, and it seemed to be like in September, October, because she makes a comment about she doesn't have any more tan left from her summer. So it's early on in the school year. And so it's just kind of a nice film to watch. It's funny. It's got some emotional to it. It's got a great Thompson Twins song. Once again, great music at the end. It's just when she sees Jake Ryan at the, she misses the throwing of the bouquet because she had to get her sister's veil or whatever in the church, and they're all leaving, and then just as perfectly, all the cars leave, and then boom, there's Jake Ryan, his fancy car, and she looks up and she's like, and he waves to her, and he's like, oh, you're here for me. And so all of her dreams have now come true.
Aww.
And I love the scene. And then you got the Thompson Twins song. I forget what it was called, but it's a great song and it builds up. And then they have a little conversation. And then he's like, okay. She says, I'm supposed to go to a reception, but I'm not going to, so you can take me home or whatever. And he's like, okay, cool. And I love this part is that, so then you cut to Paul Dooley getting the family in the car to go to the reception. And he turns around to see what's behind her. And he sees Sam going with Jake Ryan. She's like, this is the boy I was telling you about last night. Yeah. And he looks at the car. And he's like, yeah, nice. and then she's like, thanks. And then she goes. And then it's just a great dad look. Is that he's very happy. He sees that his daughter has found the love, her crush, the guy she's talking about, that he's rich, and he's got this look on his face is like, yes, my daughter's very happy, and this is great. It's just a great little look, and he's closed the door, and then they go to the reception, and then she goes off, and he gives her a birthday present and stuff like that, and it's the end of the film. But it's just a nice mid-'80s fun little film, and I absolutely love it. I watched it for my, 19th birthday, maybe. And there's an interesting story behind it, and I'll get into that real quick, and then we'll end the show. But I hate to say this, my grandmother always had the knack of having something major happen to her around my birthday. For my 21st birthday, it must have been older than I was older than my 21st birthday. She had a heart bypass, triple bypass on my birthday. So I couldn't celebrate my 21st birthday because she might have not made it, So I was concerned for my grandmother. So luckily my sister took me out a month later, July 20th. So I got to have my 21st birthday then. It was later then. So then she died when I was like 23, 24, something like that. She died the week before my birthday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And her funeral was the day before my birthday on the 19th. And it was beautiful. My mom and my aunt did a great job of getting the house in order. My grandfather was suffering through Alzheimer's at that time, but he was lucid enough that he knew that his wife had died, and he wanted to thank everybody for coming. My parents have been divorced for a while. My dad came down to the funeral, paid his respects, and came out to the reception afterward. It was in my grandparents' yard. They had a nice big yard, and it was really nice. And so they had that. And I was busy, making sure my mom and my sister and my aunt and my cousins were all okay,
Sure.
I mean, they were old enough to handle it themselves, but if they needed someone to talk to or whatever,
Right.
I wasn't really emotionally affected by it. It didn't, because she was older, she was suffering, she was like in her 80s, mid 80s, upper 80s, and she had been suffering for about a year up to that point. She'd been in hospice after hospice and stuff like that. So on my birthday, and I'm always going to remember this, on my birthday, I didn't have a car, so I was like 23, 24. I was walking to the Giant, which is a grocery store nearby the house, and I needed to get some milk and some groceries. So I walked up there, I grabbed the groceries, and I'm carrying them back. So I'm carrying these four bags of groceries, two in this hand, two in this hand, and one of them had a gallon of milk in it. So I'm walking down, and I made it all the way from the Giant. It's about a 5-10 minute walk from my house. It's like a 3-minute drive, but still it's like a 5-10 minute walk. And so I'm getting onto my neighborhood. I'm walking down the sidewalk towards my house. And just I'm about to get to my house, the bag with the milk breaks. The milk explodes on the sidewalk. And I start to bawl.
Yeah,
just
it all came to a head.
Just came out. And it wasn't because I lost the milk. It was because I just lost my grandmother.
Yeah.
And I had suppressed it so much that this little incident caused the waterworks to happen. So I go back home. My mom is like, "What's the matter? What's wrong?" And I just go. I was like, "I dropped the milk. It's all splattered." But I think she knew that it was because of my grandmother and stuff like that. She's like, "Hey, I'll go get some milk." She'll drive her car. I didn't want to bother her. I wanted to get the stuff myself. She went and drove and got the milk, and I just stayed home, and I just bawled and just wore out. And then it was my birthday, so then my mom was like, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" And I said, "I just want to stay home and watch a movie." What movie did I pick?
16 Candles. Aw.
To cheer me up a little bit. So that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. So that was a good lit show, I think. John Hughes is a fantastic writer-director. He's been gone now 7 years, actually.
Wow.
It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but yeah, 2009 is when he passed away. So that's been a while. And the bad thing was, at the tail end of his career, he wasn't as successful. It was like right around the mid 90s. I mean, maybe a little bit, because the Dennis the Menace movie you talked about and the 101 Dalmatians, he did pretty good. But I guess near the end of his career, like I guess maybe once he into the 2000s, he got into the 2000s, his career just sort of bottomed out, and he never was able to get that time back. I was talking to Dawn the other day. There was a period of time from like 84 to like 86 where he had like 6 films that he was involved in that are all classics.
Yeah.
All in a row.
Like the 80s was like his genre. That was like his thing, Yeah.
It was like 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Vacation, or European Vacation, whatever else. It's just a huge line of just all these popular films he did.
Like Kismet,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, okay, so that's our episode for tonight. We didn't do a Valentine's-esque one because we did that last year. We did the most romantic couples. Maybe next year we'll do a Valentine's Day thing, whatever. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. But we will be back next month. We don't know what we're going to do yet. We'll think about that a little bit. And as always, I'll talk to Geri. We'll work some stuff out, and we'll have another great episode somewhere in the mid-March range. I guess would be, I don't know, what's day 12th? I think it'd be about the same time in March. So around the 13th, 14th itself. So we'll be back for that. And enjoy your Valentine's Day. Be safe. Stay warm, you guys on the East Coast. You especially, Geri. You guys, I think, are getting a little bit more cold than we are because the polar vortex is more north, I think.
Yeah, our high today was 7, and it felt it. Yeah, it was bitter.
Yeah, we're 10 degrees warmer, so ours was 17. So, but still, still, that you guys are getting the bulk of it. So stay warm tonight, and tonight and tomorrow is going to be worse. So be careful out there. Have a good Valentine's Day, and also happy belated anniversary to you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, lucky 13 this year. Yes. Yeah. It's funny, we went out last weekend because the babysitter was going out with her boyfriend tonight for Valentine's. So like, all right, we'll get you for the weekend before then. So it worked out.
Get Uncle Buck or Mr. Wilson to watch.
I would love to have Uncle Buck watch them. I would make them those giant pancakes. They'd love that.
And then threaten the creepy boyfriend.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next month. I will be doing a show next weekend. Don't know what it's going to be yet. It's either going to be my Harry Potter show or it's going to be just me chit-chatting about whatever. So until then, I'll see you guys later. Bye, Geri. Thanks for hanging.
Bye, Dylan. Good night.
Bye-bye.